Hello, beach bums. Thanks for hopping on the live feed. Okay, there we go. Clear that out. I hope you're doing fantastic this Sunday afternoon. It's a beautiful day outside. If you fished today, comment below what you caught. Let me know in the comments. Just drop a comment. I'm just pulling this up right here so I can get questions. We're doing a live question and answer. What's up, WH Outdoors? My chair is giving me trouble today. I'm like sliding all over the place. Here, let me close that closet door. What's up, Aaron? How's it going? This is my office. You know, if you watch a lot of my videos, you see this is my office slash guest room. So we've got a bed and other stuff in here for our guests that we don't have very often. What's up, Chad, Will, Dalem? Thanks for hopping on the live feed, guys. You are awesome. Give it a thumbs up. That helps me out. Yeah, go ahead and start dropping some questions. I'll be going through answering your questions. You can ask me anything. Just keep it clean. Keep it relevant. You know, it can be about fishing. It can be about me. It can be about the channel. It can be about, whatever. Just keep it clean. You can ask me whatever. If you fished today, though, comment below. Let me know what kind of fish you caught today. It was a beautiful day outside. I did not fish. I just hung out with the family. Did not have a trip today, so just enjoyed some time off. The Pomp Stomp is over. If you were watching those videos, I don't really have like a closing video for that, but I did not place. I know some of you probably are going to ask. I took my L in that column, but our good buddy Scott Kennedy, he actually took second place in aggregate. I think he had like 8.3 something for his bag, so old Scott took second place, did really good. I couldn't keep up, man. I just could not keep up. A lot of big pomping over caught. They just weren't caught by me. So maybe next year. But didn't place in the Pomp Stomp. Let's see. I wanted to cover something else. Oh, yes. I have posted a link in the description of this video. Hopefully you can click on it. I am selling t-shirts and hats currently. We are doing a pre-order until May 15th. So if you want to help support the channel, help support what we're doing, want to get a cool t-shirt, get a cool hat, there's no shipping. It's just the price is what you pay. So like it's 25 bucks for a hat, it's 25 bucks for a shirt. That's it. That's all you pay. No shipping. We'll pay for that. So click the link. It goes to my website. If you can't find the link, it's just on my website, staybummy.com. Go help us out, support us, get a cool shirt, get a cool hat. You can see, it's got the designs on there so you can see it. So go check that out. That'll help me out. I really appreciate that. Well, let's dive into some questions. Let's look at what we've got. I see some things popping up on here. And thank you so much for hopping on the live feed. You guys are awesome. Okay. Let's see. What height rod do you use for surf fishing? Max asks. I use a few different options. The most common one that I use is a 10-foot surf rod. And I use a few different brands, but it just depends on what we're doing. I do use some steelhead rods as well that are different heights, or different lengths, or whatever you want to call it. But the most common one that I use is a 10-foot surf rod. It's medium action. And really any brand's fine. I mean, just get something that feels good for you. Brad Warren asks, where's the margarita? Cinco de Mayo. That's right. I forgot. Yeah, I definitely could use margarita. That would be fantastic. I didn't partake today. Chat enjoyed the beach bum showdown with Kennedy. Yeah, that was a good time with Scott and Dusty. That was fun. Just doing something different, mixing it up helps me out too. Okay. When do you start? Chad asks, when do you start casting in the surf, and what are some good lure options? Chad, it's getting time. I haven't had an opportunity to get out there and do that yet, but trout are starting to kind of show up in the surf. From what I've seen, I haven't personally caught any yet, but so that's an opportunity. Bluefish, trout and bluefish, and of course redfish. Those are definitely your most common fish that you're going to catch with lures. and flounder. You know, of course, you can always throw pompano jigs, but sometimes it's tough to get those jigs where those pompano are casting it that far. But I keep it simple. You know, I don't do a lot of different lure options. Some guys do. But you know, just something that you can throw a top water lure. Just like I really like the dadgummit, what are those called? Spooks. Couldn't think of it. The and different size spooks like the Spook Junior. I really like the one knocker spook, and it just gives a different cadence, a different sound, you know, from the knockers that are in it. And I really like it. I use it a lot. Jerk baits work great. You know, the Mirrodines, however you want to say that. Any color option really, those work fantastic. And then I really like gulp, you know, for jigging on the bottom. And spoons too. I throw a lot of spoons, silver spoon, gold spoon. That catches a lot of stuff. Diamond jigs for your Spanish mackerel and your bluefish. They'll hit that. I've even caught trout on diamond jigs, which I was surprised by that because they're just super. I don't know. They just look kind of stupid, but they work. So yeah, I mean, there's really no right or wrong, but I mean, a lot of the same inshore stuff that you're going to throw. The conditions just have to be right for throwing those lures, and we're getting there. Like the water temperatures are getting warmer, so that's more of a. And we just started catching ladyfish this week, so that's big news because that just means water temperatures are getting up. We're getting more into a summer type pattern when you start seeing those ladyfish showing up. They can be annoying, but they can also be fun to catch. So we're getting at a point where you can start throwing artificials and having more success, where it's not just pompano, not just whiting out there. All right, San Diego. Mario from San Diego. What color braid do you prefer? Carry one concealed asks. And if I miss a question, I apologize. I try to hit as many of these as I can. You know, but scrolling down on this is not always the easiest. So I apologize if I do miss your question. But if I skip over you and you notice, just throw it back up there again. I'll try to hit you. Carry one concealed. What color braid do you prefer? I do not care about color. Color makes no difference to me whatsoever. Because you know, I'm always using leader. So I don't care. The fish don't see it. It doesn't matter to me. I pick whatever looks cool. If you watch my videos on my surf casting rigs, you know, for pompano, my 10-foot rods with the 5,000 size reels, I typically have blue braid on there. And that's just because that's the Super Slick, the Power Pro Super Slick. That's the color that they have at J&M Tackle, where I actually purchase that line. I don't know if they have any other colors in the Super Slick, but I just really like the Super Slick because it casts better. It has nothing to do with color, so I don't care. I'll use whatever color, but usually it's green, which is just kind of your standard Power Pro, or blue, which is the Super Slick. But it's not color, it's just performance. One speck, one flounder, one red at Little Lagoon. Castle Killer, nice, good job. Yeah, comment what you caught today. Let me know. I want to know what you caught. What do you think? Hey, what do you think about the Shimano Ultegra? I don't know anything about Shimano, man. I'm not gonna be able to answer this question. 5500 XTD. I can't find any reviews, but looking for a nice beach rig, I guess. Chad, I have no experience with Shimano. I don't know a thing about it, man. So if somebody else can answer that question, go and maybe respond to Chad if you have any experience with the Shimano Ultegra. I don't even know how to pronounce that. 5500. I always use Penn. I'm a Penn guy. I have no sponsorship, but I just like them. Come to Florida sometime, man. I do go to Florida. Caught my first bonnet head today. Cool. And some whiting. Jesse asks, what's your biggest catch to date? It's a harder question to answer than you would think. And I get that question a lot on trips, you know, when I'm out there hanging out with people, taking them fishing. They always ask, you know, what's the biggest fish you've ever caught? And I don't know. Like, I don't know how to. It just depends, I guess. Like for redfish, the biggest redfish I've caught was 44 inches. I didn't weigh it, so I don't know how much it weighed. I mean, my guess would be somewhere around 25-ish pounds. I don't know. The biggest black drum I've ever caught was personally, not on a trip, but personally it was only 39 inches. And that was probably somewhere around 30-ish pounds. I have caught a 5.5-foot black tip. That's the biggest shark I've ever caught. I don't do a lot of shark fishing. And then, of course, a Jack Crevalle, which I didn't weigh. That was definitely the hardest fighting fish I've ever caught was the Jack Crevalle. And it was in a video, but I didn't measure or weigh it. So I don't know. I don't know. Those are the biggest fish I've caught, but which one's technically bigger, longer, heavier? I don't know. They're all cool. What can you catch in summer off piers? Josh asks. I don't do a lot of pier fishing, but of course, I'm obviously aware of it, and they catch a lot of the same things that we do off of the beach. The opportunities that you're going to get on the pier that's not as common in the surf, of course, is Spanish mackerel, which we do catch them in the surf, but it's way easier to catch them on the pier. They get opportunities at king mackerel. Of course, they throw at cobia this time of year, but that's not like an everyday thing. You just kind of have to look up and have one cruising by. I mean, that's really it. I mean, as far as what you can catch out there that you're not going to catch from the beach as easily from the pier, I would say that's probably about it in the summer months. I mean, you get sheep's head in the winter and spring, but you'll catch flounder, you'll catch trout, you'll catch pompano, you'll catch whiting, redfish, all that stuff. But of course, we catch all that from the beach too. So, but yeah, all that's going to be running in the summertime. Summer's really good fishing. It gets hot, but I mean, there's a lot of fish in the surf in the summertime. And in late summer, later in summer. I mean that still applies. I don't know if I read that correctly. Do you prefer single, double, or triple pompano rig for your setups, or why do you select one over the other for conditions? Mid Tennessee Jason asks. Great question. This is a good topic. I don't ever use triple. That's just way too much. I use single and double drops, and I use a variation of the two. If I'm using a single drop right now, as of today, what I've got tied on my rods, I've got three. I run 4 pompano rods typically. I've got 4 rods that are specifically for pompano. 3 of them are single drop rigs right now, and one of them is a double drop. All 3 single drops I have. This is some good information for you guys. Are tied high. So, if I have a single drop and I'm trying to catch pompano, I tie that drop high. And what I mean is it's anywhere from 20 to 24 inches from the bottom. Okay, so from where that weight is, it's going to be 20 or 24 inches of space before I tie that branch line. I use single drop rigs a lot just because, especially right now, because we just started catching ladyfish, and those things get tangled up in your line, and we're catching catfish too, which can be a booger with 2 drops. But you're going to conserve bait by using a single drop, and I'm able to cast further with a single drop. You can reduce the amount of line that you're using if you want to shorten that up a little bit, not tie it as high as I mentioned. But you also have less drag in the air as that rig is flying out. I've noticed when you have 2 drops, 2 floats, 2 hooks, 2 baits, that's more weight and it's more drag. I mean, you lose distance on that. I've definitely noticed that. So you can cast further, you use less bait, and typically, I mean, those pompano, we do catch them on the bottom drop, but most of the time it is the top. So, and if I use something if I'm using just shrimp, just pieces of shrimp, actual natural bait, or sand fleas, I definitely only use 1 drop. I feel like it doesn't really increase my chances to put 2 out there, and typically we catch them with the 1 drop. If I'm running 2 drops, it's just really just to have more bait options out there, but I don't want to go through too much. I don't want 4 rods with double drops. That's a lot of bait, and I feel like it's just a lot to get boogered up, and a lot of times it just slows you down. And what was the second part of that? And why do you select one over for the conditions? I think I kind of answered that, hopefully. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. And of course, it scrolled down all the way to the bottom. Does that every time to me. It's like the way this works, you barely touch it and it just drops all the way to the bottom. So happens occasionally. I'm reading. Pin battle 2 that you use. Patrick, and somebody else and this might have been you. Somebody else has been asking me this question. And I'm sorry. I try to answer your questions on YouTube, and if you've commented and I haven't replied, I'm so sorry. I try my best to keep up with, I get a lot of messages on Facebook, on my Facebook page, on my personal Facebook, of course my email, and this time of year is just really, really, really busy. We're running a lot of trips. I get a lot of message requests, which is great. Thank you guys so much. I don't want this to come across. I'm not complaining about any of this. I'm just explaining. If I haven't replied to you in a comment on YouTube, I do apologize. I try to get there, but I don't. I saw this question, but I have not yet replied to it. But Patrick, the Pin Battle 2 that you're using, is that a 6,000 or 8,000? I don't have that big on anything. The biggest reel I have is a 5,000, and that's on all of my Pompano setups, our Pin Battle 2 5,000s. What do you charge for your surf charter? I've answered that question a lot on this. Just go check out my website. I don't mind answering it. It's not that. I've answered a lot. Just go to staybummy.com. I've got all my pricing right there. What size weight is best? Used 4 ounce the other day and bait was rolling. Josh asks. There's a lot of people hit the thumbs up button. Saw somebody hit the thumbs up. Hit the like button, helps me out. Let me know if you're getting something out of this live feed. Just hit the thumbs up. I appreciate you. There's a lot of variations to this, and there's a lot of factors that play a role in what size weight you're going to use and what's going to stick and what's not. I generally, regardless of conditions, unless it's super rough, I'm going to be using a 3 ounce lead. And that is only because I can cast it further. So if I'm using my 10-foot medium action surf rods, I'm going to use a 3 ounce lead, even if it's flat calm, just because I can get where I want to go and I'm more accurate with my casting. Now, if you, in your example, you said you're using a 4 ounce lead and it was rolling the other day. There's a lot of factors as to why that could be. It may be, it could be because it could be because of your equipment. It could be because your rods are too short. It could be because you're using a heavier diameter line. It could have been the angle that you were casting into the wind or into the current, because there could have been somebody sitting beside you on that same day using a 3 ounce lead and getting it to stick, because they had the proper equipment. That plays a much bigger role than I think a lot of people understand. Using a smaller diameter line, using the correct length of a rod to be able to get over the surf, casting properly so that you don't have too much of a bow in your line and creating more drag is going to allow you to stick that weight better than necessarily the weight itself. So there's a lot that plays a role into that. Hopefully that helps you out. But yeah, practice casting into the wind, into the current, using that to your advantage. I would recommend using a smaller diameter line, as small as you possibly can. Braid 20 pound is what I use on all of my rigs. If you're using monofilament, or if you're using a heavier braid like 30, 40, 50, 60, it's going to have a much harder time sticking that than something with a smaller diameter line. But yeah, I don't typically go over 3. I mean, there's very rarely conditions that require me to go heavier than 3, but I'll go up to 4 if I have to. How do you pick where and how far to cast when surf fishing? Bob Pierce asks. I answer that question a lot in videos. We could get really in depth with that. So I'll just redirect you, Bob. There's a video I have on here. I can't remember what I titled it. The title's like The Secret to Catching More Pompano, I think is the title of it. But it's where I'm talking about zone awareness. And that'll give you a very broad picture of how I find fish and where I cast to. There is more detail to it, but I could spend the rest of the time here answering that one question. So just check out my videos on that. Salty McCrory asked, why do I keep dropping fish? What's up, Salty? Hopefully I'm not wigging out here. Okay, I saw hopefully my internet's not doing something weird there. I'll get back to you on that one, Salty. Jeffrey Newsham, next loser of fish games has to eat a sand flea. That's gonna be a big fat no, especially if it's not cooked, because sand fleas do carry parasites. So I would highly recommend that you do not eat a live, raw, uncooked sand flea, because they do have parasites that can affect you. So that will not be a consequence. Best braided lines you recommend, and what not do you use, FG or other De La Masques? The only braid that I use is Power Pro. It's expensive. It costs a lot of money. I do also recommend spider wire. I have used that before in the past, but I always tell people spend money on your fishing line. Don't go cheap on your fishing line. I've used some cheap stuff before, and it'll cost you fish. And it's just that's what you're connected to those fish with. If you're gonna go cheap, honestly go cheaper on your rod, go cheaper on your reel, and just maintain it properly. Like that stuff will be fine. That'll handle it usually. But whatever you're connected to that fish, your tackle, your hooks, your line, don't go cheap. Don't be going out buying super cheap hooks and stuff and expecting to be able to get these fish in. They'll rust, they'll break, they're just crap. So spend your money on hooks and line that's connected to the fish. So I recommend Power Pro. I use a lot of different knots. I don't tie an FG ever. It takes too long. I mean, some people are probably really good at tying knots and can do it quick, but it's too difficult of a knot for me to tie while I'm out there on the beach. I use uni knots, polymer knots, and loop knots, and that's really it. I don't think I tie anything else. That's about it. So yeah, loop knots, uni knots, and polymer knots. It just depends on what I'm doing. I second Bob's question. Oh, Michael, so you're talking about how to pick where and how far to cast. Yeah, check out those videos. Again, I could really spend a lot of time on that. If I start talking about where to cast, that'll eat up the rest of our time. 2 questions. Do you feel bad about making Scott jog on the beach? And whose bikini was it? Bill asks. No, I do not feel bad about making Scott jog on the beach. I mean, okay, maybe a little bit. I was a little bit compassionate. After he ran by the first 2 groups, I told him that was enough. He had enough embarrassment for that. And that was my wife's. That's one of my wife's old bikinis that she does not wear, so it's now Scott's. He can have it, and he can keep it. Man. That was fun. We had a lot of fun making that video. I mean, and we got some good feedback. A lot of you said you enjoyed it, which I'm glad, because when you throw out something like that, you don't know how it's gonna go, and but we had a lot of fun. Do you have a preference with rod holders for the beach? Aaron asks. As long as it's not really. I mean, like the ones that I have are all custom. Like 3 of them are aluminum that have been welded for me. And then I've got a couple now that I'm using that Dusty made for me with some pretty heavy duty PVC. I mean, PVC, aluminum, either one's fine as long as it's long and as long as it's sturdy. I don't like the cheap Walmart ones. I mean, they break. I've used a ton of them. They're crap, but I mean, they'll get you by, but they'll end up breaking on you. Can you catch whiting pretty much all summer in fall? Franklin asks. Yes. Whiting is really, you can catch them every month out of the year. Whiting are always around. They get bigger, they get smaller at certain times of the year. Like, you'll catch more consistently bigger ones or smaller ones. Some days it's tough to find them, but most days you can go out any time of the year and catch whiting. So it's definitely all summer you can. Addicted to Fishing Team Era asks, are the flea colonies showing up yet? Yesterday was the last day I fished. Saturday. Addicted to Fishing Team. And yes, saw my very first colonies of sand fleas in Orange Beach. They have been showing up in Pensacola and east of there, but yesterday was the first day I actually spotted colonies. So I was excited about that. I didn't even have my rake out there because I had not been seeing them. I still had it in my truck, but I didn't even take it to the beach because I was like, we're not seeing colonies, and I don't like blind raking. I've done some of it this season so far, just to get a few fleas, but yesterday was the first day I saw multiple colonies. And it, like the previous 2 days, I've been fishing the same spot, had not seen the first colony, and then boom, they were there. So it was kind of interesting to see. And I got some with my hands. I mean, there were just so many of them, I was able to scoop them up with my hands. So yeah, hopefully they'll hang around. Hopefully that won't be the one and only day that they're here. So they should be around. Answer that question. One of my buddies says to buy used custom cobia sticks for surf. Anyone ever tried them? Do they cast far enough? I wouldn't know, Sean. Maybe somebody can answer that question for you. What's something do you store your rigs and keep them from getting tangled? Richard Curtis asks, how do you store your rigs to keep them from getting tangled? Um, okay, so my pre-tied rigs that aren't tied on to my rods, I I don't really have a good answer. A lot of people ask me, and I don't ever have a good answer for that either. But I just put them in plastic bags inside my tackle bag. So I just put each individual rig in its own like sandwich bag inside my tackle bag. So and that helps. I mean, it does still get tangled a little bit. And then when I leave them on my rods, I leave my rods intact, and I use the snap swivel at the bottom, and I just hook it to the last guide. I don't put it in the guide, but on the little branches to the guide, hook it on there, and just and tighten it down, and it doesn't get tangled that way. Okay. What is your favorite type of fish to use for cut bait to shark fish? Kent asks. I don't do a lot of shark fishing, but we've had a lot of success. You know, and usually when I'm throwing out cut bait, like we're catching smaller species sharks and we're catching redfish and stuff. Ladyfish is a great bait. I mean, a great cut bait. So, in which they just started showing up, so there should be plenty of them throughout the summer. There usually is. If you get out there early in the morning, the water's like boiling with ladyfish. You can throw anything out there, you'll catch them. Sometimes they just jump on the dadgum beach. They're like right there. For cut bait, it's really good, and they're very plentiful. So that pinfish works really good too for the smaller species sharks. Cut up, mullet, really anything. But ladyfish is the most plentiful and easy. Hey, is that? Can you do? Am I frozen right now? Yeah, I think my internet may be lagging. Let me know. Is my internet is it lagging on you, or maybe it's just me? Hopefully, it's just me. Can you do an episode or two with a bit more focus on tips on reading the beach and wave breaks? Chad asks. Yeah, I mean, Chad's asking if I can do more episodes on reading the beach and wave breaks. I talk about it pretty much in most of my videos when I'm fishing, kind of what I see and what I'm looking at. Reading the beach is something that just takes time, and it's a little lag. Okay, y'all are answering my question. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. My internet sucks here. I don't know what the deal is, but sorry for the lag. But yeah, it's difficult. It's something you really just got to get out there and practice. But in a nutshell, the ways that you're going to read the beach, one of two ways, or the two ways that you're going to do it. One is using waves, and waves are going to communicate to you where shallow and deeper water is. It's going to maintain its shape over deep water, that wave. It's going to break over shallow water. So that wave is going to break and create white water over shallow water. It's going to maintain its energy and maintain its shape over deeper water. So that's going to tell you where that stuff is. And then also, of course, when it's crystal clear, you got your polarized glasses and the sun shining, you can look and see the color changes. What I tell people about reading the beach, it doesn't mean it's going to let you know where fish are. You're still not going to know where those fish are going to be. They may be deep, they may be shallow, they may be hanging on the edges of points, they may be in the middle of the cuts, whatever. What that helps you do is understand what you're casting at and understanding what those fish are relating to. So you still need to put baits in all of those areas and test all of those areas until you start hooking up on fish. Reading the beach, again, is not going to make you know where fish are. If anybody ever tells you, oh, fish are going to be right there, I mean, you can have an educated guess, but you still don't really know until you actually test it and put baits there. But being able to read the beach is understanding what you're casting to and understanding that that's what they're relating to that particular day. So thank you for answering, or thanks for throwing out questions. You guys are awesome. Hit the thumbs up button if you're getting something out of the live feed. Helps me out. Thank you guys. And again, I mentioned earlier, but we are currently selling hats and shirts. I have a link in the description of this video. Helps me out. There's no shipping costs. Just $25 for a hat or $25 for a shirt. You can go to my website, staybummy.com. Go check it out, man. Help me out. Go buy a shirt. Support the channel. What's the best line for casting further? How far do you typically cast? I have an understanding of zone awareness. Matthew asks. For casting distance, I talked about this a little bit, but braid is definitely going to give you better casting than monofilament, and I use Super Slick. And how far, man, it changes every day, every cast. It just depends on where we're seeing those fish. Randy, I'm gonna address it. Randy says wind and braid don't go together, and I'm gonna turn this fan on because it's hot in here. I'm like sweating, and it could be because I've got like every light on in this room. Lighting's a big deal in videos. I try to make sure I've got proper lighting, so it's hot. And and that and my wife was giving me a hard time, and you may be thinking it's because you're drinking coffee. This is actually it's just water. I put water in a coffee cup, like because it looks cooler. Like we have plastic cups or coffee cups, and I didn't want to sit here with it, and it's got fish on it. So I thought that would be cool, right? I mean, anyway, she gave me a hard time. She was like, "You're a poser. You're drinking water out of a coffee cup. That's totally lame." She was really making fun of me. True story. Okay, Randy said wind and braid don't go together. Randy, it's not wind that causes wind knots. So that's what we call it. But it's not the wind. It's how you're utilizing your gear. A big thing that you can do to reduce wind knots with your braid, because braid's actually going to cut through wind a lot better than your monofilament. It's actually good for the wind, and you can actually cast better in the wind with braid. But if you're referring to wind knots, it's not caused by wind. It's usually a malfunction in the user. It's user error when you get wind knots. It's either like a wind knot is created when there's a loop in the line when you're like, and it can be created a couple of different ways. But when there's more slack and then tighter line on top of that, like slack line and then tighter line on top of that, and then when you recast, that tight line comes off and then the loose line comes off, and then there's tighter line behind it that moves faster off of it, and then it goes through that loop and it creates a wind knot. That's created a lot of times I get wind knots. This is a very specialized lesson here. A lot of times I get wind knots immediately after a break off. So like if I break my weight off, or if I break a lure off and I'm reeling in the line without any resistance at all, it's just line coming off of the water onto the reel, and then I retie and then I cast, a lot of times that happens in a wind knot. A way that you can reduce that is anytime you're reeling in that line after a break off, or you lose your stuff, however, hold the line tight, put some resistance against it, and make sure it's tight on the spool. It's going to help there. Also, what happens is if you're casting a lot with lures, if you aren't making sure that line is fed through the bail properly, if you're not doing that and it goes over the top of the spool, and then you cast and the line goes through that loop, again, you can have a wind knot. So the way to reduce that is just after every cast, before once you close that bail, pull that line tight, make sure it's fed through the bail properly, and that'll help reduce it. Couple of tips there to help with wind knots. It's not the wind, it's usually user error. All right, sorry. Spent a lot of time on that. Throat's getting scratchy. Thank you for the comments. Just reading through them, trying to find some questions. Charles Michael asks, "You got any relatives in Georgia?" That's an interesting question. I do. I have two brothers and their families that live in North Georgia in the Cumming area. Their names are Brian and David. So if you happen to know them, yeah, I do. Please describe the beach and water depth you usually fish. Gerald Cook asks. Man, water depth is a hard thing, man. I don't know. I mean, if I had to guess, like if I'm fishing for pompano, usually it's anywhere from like the 6 to 8 foot range would be my guess in depth. For whiting, a lot of times it's anywhere from knee deep to chest deep. So maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 feet. It's hard to say though. I mean, it varies so much, and where we put baits and where we find fish that day, it's different every day. You ever take your reels? Kev Docs asks, do you ever take your reels apart and oil them? If so, how often? Never. I never do actually. Yeah, I probably should, but my stuff still lasts a pretty long time. Like I mean, I've got some that I've had for 4 years now, and I've never taken them apart and oiled them, and they still work fine. I just spray them down every time. I baby them. If they hit the sand or if they get salt water on them while we're on the beach, I always make sure I rinse it off immediately before we continue using it. Um, I have had a couple that I did get serviced, but man, I don't ever use the proper way to take care of your stuff. I'm sure it would be to take it apart and oil it every so often, but I just don't. I just don't. You know, I don't take the time, but it hasn't really hurt me yet, so we'll see. How much longer will pumps be running? Joey Booker asks. Running good. We usually are continually catching them well through May. So the month of May is typically still pretty good. What starts to hurt us in May is we usually start seeing some June grass show up, so that can kind of put a damper on things. Of course, we start catching more species in the month of May, like your ladyfish, your blue runners, catfish. A lot more stuff starts moving in the surf, so it's harder to get to those pompano, but we're still catching them pretty good. And then we'll still catch them in June and July around here. We were still last year and the last few years. We've always had pompano running pretty good through June and July. It just starts to taper off. The hardest months for pompano, and it's all water temperature dependent. So water temperature plays a huge role in whether or not pompano are going to be present. So when water temperatures get too high, they're not going to be around, and when water temperatures get too low, they're not going to be around. They really like the upper 60s, low 70s ish area. So like August, September, and even into October can be extremely hard for pompano fishing because those water temperatures are so high, they're not around. We start seeing it, we get a mini run, we kind of call it, in the fall when those water temperatures kind of get back to where they like, where we start catching them again in late October, November, and even December. And then it gets really hard again in January and into February and even March this past year it was still really, really hard because the water temperatures were still so low. So, and then it really started ramping up in April because water temperatures got where they needed to be and pompano started showing up. So if you're wanting to, don't worry too much about time of year. If you're trying to know when pompano are present, pay attention to water temperature. That'll help you. Live shrimp or DOA for whiting, pomp, etc. Jason asks, I don't use any artificial shrimp for pompano or whiting. I don't ever really use I don't use live shrimp either. We use fish bites, fresh dead shrimp, sand fleas. That's pretty much it. Do you prefer single, double? I already answered that question. Eddie Watson asks, my throat's getting scratchy. I'm talking a lot. You guys are asking some really awesome questions, so thank you. What size braid do you use in the surf and what size leader? Eddie asks. I've kind of answered it, but 20-pound braid is what I use for my main line. My leaders are going to vary. Right now, for my pompano leaders, I'm currently using 17-pound fluorocarbon. I really like it. I think it does pretty good. And if I'm targeting whiting right now, I'm using 10-pound monofilament for my leader. Fishing Stripes ask, what's the craziest thing you have ever caught? Man, I'm glad you asked that question. There's a couple. Number one, if you notice, we have caught bonefish. We caught 3 in the past year. We've caught 3 bonefish. They've all been teeny tiny, but we've caught 3 bonefish in the surf. So if you didn't know that, it's crazy. Like, they shouldn't be here kind of thing. Pretty cool. So yeah, we've caught 3 bonefish. But we did the other day, and I don't film very often when we're fishing. Like I fish literally 6 to 7 days a week. And that's because I'm running guided beach fishing trips. Or if I don't happen to have a trip, I do actually go out and fish for myself, whether that be for scouting or for video purposes or whatever. But yet, yes, heavy assault, bonefish. Crazy, right? They've all been juveniles, like 5 inches long, if that. And they were all 3 like the same size. But I've got pictures. If you don't follow me on Facebook, they're on Facebook. I've posted some on Instagram too, so I have documentation. And we did actually catch one in a video. There was one video where the very first one we caught was in a video. You might have seen it. So yeah, bonefish is definitely the craziest. But we did catch a cobia, a legal cobia, off of the beach maybe 3 weeks ago. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you would have seen it. But I have no video content of that because, again, like I said, I do not film every day. I only film about once a week. So, but a cobia, how crazy is that? I was freaking out too, man. Like I was wigging. My client caught me the Newshams. Jeffrey's here. They caught the cobia, and man, it was I was wigging out. I was wigging out. It was so cool. I wish I'd been filming that day. But yeah, those are the two I would say craziest catches. Do you got Jeffrey Fountain? Do you have family in Colbert County? I grew up with some Isbels. Colbert County, I guess that's in Alabama. No, there are some Isbels up in the North Alabama area. From what I hear, an Isbel's not a very common last name, but to my knowledge, I mean, we're probably related to them somehow, but it's nobody I know or know how we would be related. So I would say no, they're not related. Why? Michael Shannon asks why surf over pier. I've only pier fished a couple of times now this year, and I'd like to do more of it, and I know many of you have asked for pier videos. I've always gravitated to the surf primarily just because we catch a lot of the same stuff from the pier. The surf is free, or the beach is free, whereas the pier costs money, and there's obviously a lot more people in one concentrated space at the pier. You do get a few different opportunities off the pier, like your sheep's head, better opportunities at Spanish, king mackerel, things like that you're not necessarily going to get from the beaches often. But I just don't like dealing with having to be on top of a lot of people and all that stuff. I'd rather be able to spread out and have my space and relax. So that's really all. And we catch, again, like I said, we catch a lot of the same stuff. So, but nothing wrong with pier fishing. Nothing wrong at all. Nothing wrong with fishing, man. I mean, get out there however you can, however you want to do it. Man, y'all have asked a lot of questions. It scrolled to the bottom. Man, I'm not going to get to all these questions. Y'all are awesome, though. Y'all are awesome. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get back to where I was. I think I missed some of these questions. Jordan asks, "What did I? Yeah, what is the best bait for pomps?" It varies. I mean, they hit a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, fish bites is a fantastic bait. Um, the best fish bite that I've had the most success with is the sand flea flavor, but like natural sand flea flavored fish bites, shrimp fish bites, all that stuff works great. Fresh dead shrimp. I mean, we catch a lot on fresh dead shrimp. So any and all of that. I mean, they kind of vary up. Like some days one will outperform the other, but any of those any day you should have a really good shot. My wife just got back home with my child. I don't know if you can hear all that. They're like chasing each other around the house or something. All right. How many rods do you take when it's just you and why? Fishing Stripes asks. I usually take 4 with me. I won't take more than 4 because I don't want to deal with that. I'll usually set up 2 to 3 depending on the bite. So like if the bite's pretty hot, I'll just run 2. If it's slower, I'll put 3 out. I don't do more than 3 because I just don't want to keep up with it. But I have 4 usually with me just in case, a rig breaks and I don't want to retie or something goes wrong. I always like to have at least 1 extra with me just in case I need it. When I'm pompano fishing. That, if I'm throwing lures, 1 or 2. What's up, Beach Bum? Fishing the 910. Not much, man. What action rod do you use? I'm trying to figure out what I want, but most I see are medium, heavy, fast action. All right, so action rods. A lot of people ask that question, and it depends on the style. It depends on the brand. I mean, there's so many variations. Just because I say I use a medium action rod, and like you said, you got medium, heavy, medium, fast, medium, light, medium. Like it can be any variation of medium, and then you got fast and heavy and all that stuff. So it can get confusing. The best thing to do, I mean, is just really get a feel for it yourself when you're in the tackle store. Mess with it. Bend it a little bit. It's not going to break. test it out, try to make sure it feels right for you. And obviously a medium action steelhead rod versus a medium action surf rod or a medium action inshore rod, that's all completely three different, completely different things. So it's really hard to say. I mean, like I hate the way we classify rods. Like I think it's more confusing. It doesn't help people. I think there should be a better way to do it. So, but yeah, I use medium action stuff, but it just depends on what you're looking for. Just see what feels right for you. All right. Adam Andrews says, I've got a good and important question. All right. What are the various water temperatures for different fish you catch? And name them. Wow, man, that is a whew. All right, so the only thing that I pay attention to, and here's let me just fill you in on a little secret here, on how I fish. I'm fishing 6 or 7 days a week, regardless. So I don't care much about tides. I mean, there are things, yes, that will increase your opportunities. I don't even look at tides. I don't look at water temperature. I don't look at any of that stuff because I'm fishing regardless. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it's either going to be a tough day or a good day, but we're going to have to try to catch fish regardless of the conditions. Some days it's easier because of those things are right. But I go fishing regardless and just figure it out. Like that's what I do because I have to. But kind of throughout the year, I kind of actually gave a synopsis of pompano, which is typically our primary target. If you do pay attention to those water temperatures, they like the upper 60s and low 70s. You're going to have more success when those temperatures are in that range. Oh, man, my throat is getting really scratchy today. I'm sorry, guys. I know that's got to be annoying. I've been doing a lot of talking. Hit the thumbs up if you're getting something out of the video. We'll take a quick break here for that. Give me a breather. You guys hit it thumbs up. I'm drinking water. This is not coffee. It's water. My wife gave me a hard time for that. Man, y'all are doing awesome on questions here. I think good. All right, Chad. I'm skipping over some of these because I've kind of answered them. So if I skip your question, I may have already answered it. And if you're coming on late, just roll the footage back, and I probably answered that question already. Justin Rigdon asks, can you show us sometime how to hook a sand flea properly? I've done that in some videos. Again, my videos are all over the place. I just saw our first sand flea colony this past, on Thursday, or not Thursday. I don't even know what day it is. Yesterday, Saturday. And so I probably will be fishing with them more here soon. And so hopefully in those videos, you'll see how I hook them. I'll try to remember to show you. Wesley Newberry asks, what colors for topwater lures work best for different fish? I've always said color for your topwater is probably the least important thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, I mean, obviously the only color they're going to see is what's on the bottom. So, like the color of the lure doesn't matter. Also, topwater bite is usually in a lot of times muddier waters. Usually it's better. Or obviously the number one thing, low light. So like early morning, late evening, when you can't really see much anyway. So that color, I would doubt, is really going to be sticking out. So really the main thing is just dark and light. So like if you have like a white one and a black one, or a light colored and a darker color, whatever that may be, that's really it. Like you don't have to get crazy with your topwater colors. I think it is the least important thing. I think what gets a bite on topwater is that action. I mean, just the amount of disturbance that lure creates on top of the water. So I think it has very little to do with color. Obviously I think that's one of those things that tackle industries are catching fishermen and not fish. We've heard that, and that's definitely one of them. I don't care about topwater color. Zero. I could care less. It doesn't matter. Some guys may care. I don't. Some of you guys are asking about water temperature to elaborate on. Again, I kind of went through earlier, kind of throughout the year, pompano, and what I look for that. Some of these questions are funny. I'm just reading through these guys. Okay. What is unknown asks, what are best hooks to use out there? All I can find locally are 2.0 circle hooks by Eagle. I use what I'm using right now, and it kind of changes, but I really like Owner hooks. And for my pompano rigs, I'm using size 2, not 2/0, but size 2. And then if I'm throwing for whiting, I'm using a size 6, which is smaller. So it just depends on what fish I'm targeting and what I plan on using for bait, because the size of the bait you want to take into consideration for the size of the hook. I'm also tying some of my rigs with, oh wow, okay, we got to block somebody here. Y'all kill me. Some of you people. But it depends on the site. Like if you're using 2/0, hang on. Okay. Killing me, folks. If you're using like I've tied a lot with 1/0 circle hooks, and that's because, you know, if I'm using a bigger piece of shrimp, or if I'm using sand fleas, I'm going to use that the bigger hook, because I'm using a bigger bait. So I want to make sure that that bait's going to hold, and make sure that it looks good, or the presentation is good on that. Okay. Scrolling back up. Sorry, guys. Had somebody trolling me here. Wow, man. Y'all got a ton of questions on here. Dang. And we, you know, I try to keep this 45 minutes, which we are over that. Okay. Well, dang. All right. Well, we'll do one more. But, man, you guys have asked a lot of questions. Thank you so much for hopping on the live feed. Always a good time. I enjoy this. I think it's a good time. If you're getting something out of this, hit thumbs up. Let me know that this is valuable information and helpful to you. And we'll keep doing them. I try to do it once a month and let you guys know when it's happening. But let's do one more question. I'll find one more. Clayton, you're asking about the tournament. I talked about that at the very beginning. So if you go back and watch that, you'll see I didn't place in the tournament. Just reading through. I want to find a good question here. Bear with me. And again, we've got shirts and hats for sale on my website. Go help support the channel. I've got a link in the description below for that. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the encouragement here. I see a lot of encouraging things. You guys are awesome. Okay. Talking about my hair. Oh, hey, well, Brody Miser, I'm friends with Dax and the Isbels. David drove me to the movies last night. Well, hello, Brody. I don't know if you're still on here, but Dax is my nephew and David is my brother up in North Georgia. That's funny. That's cool. Okay. You guys are awesome. Really encouraging stuff. I'm actually not seeing very many questions here. Okay. Ooh. All right, here, Brian, I'll answer this question. We'll wrap up with this one. Or actually, I see some down here. Let's see. Whoa. Okay, there are a lot of questions. Dang. Okay. Y'all are funny. Man, there's so much on here. I'm so sorry, guys. This is taking a lot to weed through here. Okay. We'll talk about this Max Mallard because this is a really good question and very pertinent to what we're in right now and the time of year. What's up, Phil? Hopping on late here on the live feed. Max is last question, guys. Thank you again so much for hopping on. You guys are awesome. Best line for pomp rigs, and I tie my own Pompano rigs. And there's a lot of variations and there's a lot of reasons as to why you may want to use one thing over the other. So I'm going to talk about that. Obviously for water clarity, that's that's probably the most biggest thing you're going to take into consideration. I always assume every fish is going to be leader size. So sometimes monofilament, a lighter monofilament or a lighter fluorocarbon is going to win, whether that be 10, 15, or 20. I use all those. Right now, currently, I'm using 17-pound fluorocarbon just to keep, fluorocarbon is quote unquote supposedly invisible. If it gives me that little bit of an advantage, I like it. So I'm going to use that. But sometimes you're going to have to go up in your leader size if it's going to be rough. Because obviously if I have 17-pound fluorocarbon and I'm trying to throw like a 5 or a 6 ounce lead if I have to, which I don't do very often, but if it's really rough and I feel like we still have a good opportunity to fish, there's a really good chance that line's going to snap. So if I'm casting that, so I may have to go up in leader size. I may need to go up to like a 30, possibly even a 40, which I don't really do that, but you're gonna have to use bigger hooks, and you're gonna have to take that into consideration too. So it depends on water clarity and conditions as far as what size leader you're going to use, because you want to be careful with that. A lot of pre-tied pompano rigs I've seen a lot with 30-pound mono or 30-pound fluoro, depending on the quality that you get. And a lot of them are 20. So it just depends. But if you're tying your own, I highly recommend it just because it gives you the authority to pick your colors. It gives you the authority to pick your leader size based on conditions, based on what you need to, whether that be water clarity or how rough the surf is. So take all that into consideration. I use a lot of different things, and it just depends on what we're dealing with. But most days right now, 17-pound fluorocarbon I feel like gets the job done. Guys, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hat. Help me out, help support the channel. Thanks for hopping on. Give a thumbs up if something helps you out in this video. And as always, you stay bummy.